Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'll never forget, I was in more pain than I could ever remember myself having been in. I was in territory I had never explored before. I was just closing in on mile 10 of what would be my first half marathon. And all of a sudden, I come up to the next sign. It's mile 11, and it was called the Angel Mile. And for the first time that race, I stopped dead in my tracks. And I thought about Daniel, and I thought about Jenna, and I thought about all the people who had come before me, my friends, kids who lost their lives far too early in life, kids who understood life and humanity and spirit and joy and meaning and purpose better than most who lived several decades. These people taught me how to live. They taught me how to fight, how to survive, how to pursue the greatest joys in life. And in that moment, I was overwhelmed with tears. I continued on and walked that entire mile, remembering people like Jenna, people like Daniel, trying to honor them in any way I could. And I realized that I still had so much potential within me. I was battling through and coming out of one of the darkest phases of my life where I had not produced much of anything. I had been running from my own fears, from my own emotions, from my own thoughts. And somehow that all led me to this race. And I continued on. I picked back up running at mile 12, a distance I never thought I would make it to. And I continued on further up High Street and eventually broke off to take that turn, praying for that finish line that never seemed to come. Yet eventually we come under an underpass and I start to go up a hill and I come around a turn and I see it. I see the finish line. I see the lights. I see the cheering crowd. I see the time clock, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer. And all of a sudden, I'm standing at that finish. And I once again break down in tears because I had just had the opportunity to complete something that I never thought would be available to me. I had the opportunity to do something that should have been completely impossible given what I had gone through physically. And while EMTs were rushing up to me thinking I was having a panic attack and doing their job, which they did incredibly, I kind of pushed them all back and told them I was fine and walked away and just sat down and cried by myself for a while. Because I knew Daniel would never have an opportunity to run that race. I knew Jenna would never have the opportunity to run that race. But I knew I did. And the best thing I could do for them, the best thing I could do to honor their lives and the lives of so many other kids who are battling and have battled and will battle, is to continue to chase this highest potential that I still have before me, to continue to pursue these impossible tasks, and to ultimately continue to prove that there are no limitations. And I highlight that story not to bring significance to anything I've done in my life, but rather to demonstrate how the Columbus Marathon stands leagues beyond any other race out there. It may not be the biggest marathon in the world. It may not be the one where the most elite athletes show up to. But it is our race. It is America's most meaningful marathon. because of this moment and tens and hundreds of thousands of other moments just like this, where lives are changed, lives are honored, and new life is given to those who endure it. And with us today, we are incredibly humbled and honored to bring on the man himself, a man who, without him, my life would have never been changed in this manner. Yet, I didn't even know him at the time. We didn't even meet till 6 years later. But he changed my life in that moment back in 2017 at the Columbus Half Marathon, and he has changed tens of thousands of lives since in similar manners. He is the race director for the Columbus Marathon. He is an incredible endurance athlete in his own right, and it is a huge honor to bring him on the show. So, Darris, thank you for being here today.
I'm also a big crier. You already got me.
That's
that,
okay.
That could be the earliest.
Yeah, we embrace a lot of our emotions.
I cry every year at the
me
race,
too.
but now I'm crying here. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm also I'm humbled by not only by your story, but by your comments about me. I don't think I would love to take full credit. I would never want to take full credit because it's not about me. There's a wonderful team of people and a wonderful board of directors, wonderful group in the hospital we work with. But what you said, our race. People drive me crazy when they say, hey, I'm doing your race. And I correct them because it's not my race. It's our race. It's our community. It's our athletes. It's the kids at the hospital. It's the police officers that are out there helping us put this thing on and the firefighters. And I think that's why I am agreeing to put us up against anybody in the country or the world, because we as a community are so much well knit to making this thing come together. And other cities do good jobs. They have great events, but ours it's different, and it's become more different since we started partnering with the hospital.
Yeah, it's something I tell everybody. I can talk to the most experienced runner in the world who has done Boston and London and Berlin and all these great world races, and I don't care who it is. If they haven't done Columbus, I'll tell them, I'm like, you got to do Columbus, and they're like, I've run all these other races. I'm like, but you haven't done Columbus. Like, it is different than any other marathon out there, and there's a lot of aspects that I really love to it, and a lot of things that I think really make it unique and really make it a great opportunity for people. And we'll dive into all of those. We are going to chat a lot about the Columbus Marathon today, but if you guys want to learn more about Darris and his history as an athlete, how he got to be where he is today, he's done several great podcast episodes. You guys can check out the Collective Good, for example. You get to hear a lot about his story and how he got to be where he is. But we wanted to really do a deep dive into the Columbus Marathon today because we wanted to put a spotlight on this race and how meaningful it is and give people an opportunity to witness what makes it so special, so that if you ever feel called to chase something that may seem totally impossible to you, you have a perfect opportunity, a perfect option open to you right here close to home for a lot of us, honestly. So take us back to, how did the Columbus Marathon come to be? When was the official start? I know it was before you had ever even gotten involved with it.
So back in the late 70s, marathons were becoming a thing. New York City Marathon was created. Boston had been around for, I want to say, since the 1800s or something like that. But cities around, and really you kind of know which ones they were because they're celebrating 50th, 51st anniversaries. Cleveland Marathon and Chicago and Detroit, these various locations. And the city leaders really here in Columbus back in the late 70s, maybe around a table like this, they got together somewhere and they wanted to create this event to bring people to the city. It was seen as a tourism, an attraction, much like, around that time, I think, Red, White, and Boom had been started. Other festivals, things like that were happening. And so they saw it as a way, hey, this is working in Chicago or somewhere else. Let's do one here. Now, clearly it attracts local people, but it was a way to bring people to see the city. And I mean, boy, that first year in 1980, I think they had 4 or 5,000 people in the marathon. It was only a marathon event back then. So, but they did a really good job, and it started out right away as seen as a fast course and a well organized and what it was supposed to be. Accurate. I mean, you can't do these things and sort of guess your way through. It's got to be accurate. It's got to have enough restrooms and water stops and all the things that people expect. But from the very beginning, they really reached the point they wanted to create something that was quality, and they did it from the get-go.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear, the fact that from day one it's had that level of attention to it. That's one thing I love about it, because we've done several races kind of in a lot of different areas, and I've just never seen one like Columbus that has the attention to detail. I mean, you know exactly where all the water stops are, all the restroom stops, and there's plenty of adequate restroom stops and plenty of adequate restroom facilities at each location as well, which is, those are small things, but when you're investing as much time and energy as it takes to put into like a marathon or a half marathon, those small things are important because they can quickly change your race if they're not available or accessible and when you need them. So I love to hear that attention to detail has been there since the beginning. So how did it kind of evolve so it got off to a great start in 1980, and how did it evolve over the next few decades to?
So, I think the one thing that, and even is true today, it's the people involved, the organizing team, the board of directors. They're people that had an interest in running, and so they wanted to keep the quality high, but they also had experienced events and races elsewhere. So there's no new ideas out there, and you really borrow and steal and do whatever you can for things that work. So when you experience something great somewhere or not so great somewhere, you try to bring that lesson back. And so in those early years, that's where kind of the quality was able to remain high, because the people doing it, you kind of prepare it and create it for yourself. What would I want as a runner or walker? What level of, whether it's the restrooms or the water stop, whatever those things are. And so you think about it that way, then that translates into those those other athletes, and it scales up. That continued on for a number of years, and then the level really raised on a national level in 1992. When Columbus hosted the men's Olympic trials. And what happened was, I think they were supposed to go to another city, and it fell through. And Columbus hosted, it was funny, and my first Columbus Marathon as a runner was 1991. And that year, we ran the test course for the Olympic trials. So there was this thing going here in town called Ameriflora. A lot of old timers remember it was basically it was a festival at what's called Franklin Park, and it was basically a big world. It was like a World's Fair, but it was mostly focused on flowers and horticulture. And I always thought, it'd be great if they had rides, but there were. It wasn't like Cedar Point or Kings Island. But the course ran right through Ameriflora, and through the park that was being developed. And Ameriflora was held in 1992 to mark the 500th anniversary of Columbus coming to America, or creating whatever became, it wasn't America when he got here, but it came that later. But in 90, so that was in, I want to say the first 91 was November. Then the race used to be held in November, and then the trials were held in April of 92, and that really, in the running world, really changed the status. It put Columbus on the map as an exceptional marathon for that reason, even though it was 100 guys running. It wasn't like, but I was there. I went to watched it. It was pretty cool. And then that fall, we ran the same route again, and it was interesting. But so that really continued that high level of credibility, high level of dedication to make the event, the quality, just maintain that focus, and then it just continued on. So we went through the 90s. Continued to remain at a high level, and then hit the 20th anniversary. It just continued on to that level.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you really bring to the race that you mentioned earlier is just this acute attention and focus on what makes the best experience for the runner. And I think anytime you can do that, even though this is not really like a for-profit business, it still runs with a lot of the same principles. And anytime you can think like, what gives my customer the best experience. It's going to keep people coming back and make them very excited to keep coming back. And we can talk about several examples of what you did to help build that. But even before your time as the race director, I know you helped get pacing teams involved here, correct?
Yeah.
With the what was it? The Striding Sliders with White Castle.
Still are. That's the name. Yeah.
Not necessarily my ideal pre-race food, but I love it for post-race.
Yeah. You know, it's one of the he's a board member. He was chairman at one point, still on the board. But his line that I kind of always keeps me focused on what we're doing is, we don't have mountains, we don't have beaches, we don't have anything here in the Midwest. What are you coming to Columbus, Ohio for in October? Maybe football. Yeah. But what are we going to get? How are we going to get people to come and run this thing? And that's going to be by being that high quality, that focus on the fun, whether it's the music, whether it's the finish line food, all those things have to be good, because people can go and not get those things but still have the ocean or a mountain, and it kind of wipes away that need to be super high quality. We got to be good because we don't have anything else that's kind of in our back pocket to attract. So I always think about that. So keeping that quality high is always critical.
Yeah, and I think you guys have done a really incredible job, because as we'll dive into later, some of the views and the experiences, and while they may not be like beautiful natural vistas, the experience you create through the course of this marathon is unlike anything else I've ever been able to experience. And it really is what, for me, helps truly set this race apart from others, because it becomes innately about so much more than just yourself. I mean, somebody can be going there to run the best PR of their life, but I don't care who you are, I don't think you can help but feel something bigger than yourself throughout this race, which we'll dive into. And that largely occurred through the big next step, which happened with, which you helped bring, was the partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital. So talk us through how you came to be race director, and then specifically why you thought to form this partnership, and how you helped put it all together and make it work.
Well, I definitely won't take full credit for the partnership. I will take credit for helping to execute it, but it was a lot of things that worked out, actually. And sometimes the harder you work, the luckier you get. There was a little bit of that too.
I like that line.
I became race director. I had a background here. I moved to Columbus in '91. I was a newspaper reporter and had ran my first marathon in Columbus. But I had been, after newspapers, 5 years here at the Columbus Dispatch. I had been in other cities as well doing newspapers. I left to start my own PR and marketing company, and had a lot of exposure to local companies. And to your point you brought up earlier, I got involved. I stayed involved with the race. I helped form the pace teams. And then when I was doing that marketing business, really one of my clients ended up becoming the Columbus Marathon. The PR people with the race asked me if I would help with marketing. And so I was working for the team. I was one of the team members, like other folks are involved. And then there was the board basically made a change with the company that was organizing the event, and whose team I was on, and the board basically said, "Hey, would you become director?" Now, I knew board members very well. Some of them I ran with all the time. One of them I'd known very, very. I mean, met him in back in the '90s, and basically, I had been involved in the media and marketing, the race, and I'd also been involved in the industry through some other pace teams and some other experiences I had. So I kind of knew the way marathons, I got to see a lot of behind the scenes of a lot of big races. I've been involved in helping do some work at New York and Marine Corps in Los Angeles and all these big major events. And so my background was kind of like, yeah, I can do this. And at the time I was doing marketing at the same time for the Harley Davidson dealerships here in Columbus, and which was really a different stretch, but it's really not. People are passionate, whether they're motorcyclists, whether they're runners, whether they're quilters, whatever people are passionate. And so I kind of knew how to take that passion and turn it from the running standpoint and really kind of create that environment. But I also thought I could do both jobs. And that happened for I think 3 months. And that was my very first year of the race. A lot of things hadn't been done before I took over. I took over and really got going in May, and a lot of work.
Yeah.
And
and when was this that you took over as race director?
2010.
2010.
Yeah, and the thing is, the team that had been involved that I had been working with for 3 years, I'd been one of them. I knew all their strengths and I knew what we could get done. And we had it tough that first year because I really get going in May and the race is October. But we crunched and we got it done, and from there it just kind of took off. And that first year we learned a lot, as you can expect. Learned a lot what not to do, but you'll work really hard and you'll figure out a way to cover your tracks and cover your bases as much as you can. We got it done, but it left me positioned for 2011 to really start putting my footprint on it. No pun intended. A little bit more, and then. Around late 2011, Nationwide Insurance. They've been a sponsor, partner of the race since 1980. They've been around all that time. They basically said, hey, we would like to see, and they brought this to the board, but brought it to me, and because I work very closely with the board. So if there was meetings going on, I would be part of those. And the idea was, hey, we want to continue our involvement, but we'd like to see the hospital get more involved and really leverage that partnership. And it's called Nationwide Children's Hospital because of the company Nationwide Insurance supported that with tens of millions of dollars and to make the hospital what it is. But when they asked us that, we're like, how can we get the hospital more involved? And there was a lot of discussion. How do we do that? The challenge was, if people are familiar with here in Columbus, they have this thing called Pelotonia. And Pelotonia is a wonderful cause. It's a bicycling event driven to support cancer research. But when they started, and their first year was 2007, from the very beginning, you could only do it if you're fundraising. Great concept. It's wonderful. But we were already in year 31 of the marathon, so we can't just go to people and say, you can't do it anymore unless you fundraise, because it may have worked over time. We would have been, we'd have maybe 15 people who would have agreed that first year. Who knows? Maybe it would have been more. But the fact is, we couldn't impose that. So we're sitting around. We're really figuring out how are we going to make the hospital be a beneficiary, but also make this thing work. Well, that's when the idea came up about creating this fundraising component, which are called Children's Champions, and then companies could support this as sponsors, but make it work in a hybrid way, different from the Pelotonia model. But we also didn't really know the marathon team. We're not fundraisers. The event doesn't need a lot of outside dollars. We need a lot of things. We need, you brought up White Castle. White Castle does give us some money, which allows us to offer free admission for the kids run. And they give us money, which allows us to buy a lot of supplies and they support a lot of things. But we can use those funds for signage or things like that. Gatorade gives us a lot of product. They don't give us money, but we couldn't afford to go out and buy all these drinks and cups and all that.
Probably more valuable.
Yeah, the in-kind support. But otherwise, a lot of 99% of the dollars come from registration, allow us to put the event on and cover our costs. One thing people don't understand, it costs us more than $200,000 just for the police costs and traffic control. Wow. It's $250,000 when you throw in all the traffic control and things like that, just for 7-hour time frame. It's a lot of expenses, but the registration allows us to do that and the other things we do. But that also means the hospital can benefit financially. And we're not good. Well, we might be good if we worked at it, but we don't want to be fundraisers. We want to be the people that put this event on and put it on at a high quality level that the hospital can then leverage. They can go out and sell miles. So that's why you have these companies at each mile that are sponsors. And these they can water stops or entertainment zones, whatever they can put twist people's or convince people. They're really good at twisting arms in a good way that leaves a smile on your face. But I say that all lovingly. But they're good at fundraising, and that's what we never had to go about. We also didn't need the money to fundraise. They can do it, and then they do this the fundraising with the Children's Champions. So when the hospital team and the board of directors of the marathon and Nationwide all sat down, they were able to create this kind of three-legged stool that would make this thing work. And by allowing them to fundraise, allowing us to do our thing. And the two are parallel. We work well together, we communicate, we know what each other is doing, but we don't really cross lines because we can't have them telling us how to run the race, because we have to deal with permitting and community aspects that they're not dealing with. And they can't tell me how to spend money on police. And sure, it'd be great if we didn't have to spend $250,000 on traffic control, but we also have to keep people safe. So there's things that we're good at, they're good at. And then the fundraisers, the Children's Champions, that's the whole element that the hospital, through us together, we market. And we create that high quality event, but we also create those moments of that you brought up with those kids on the course and those compelling stories that the hospital is really good at telling, which then means the fundraising element has the greatest potential. It's really like an iceberg. We were talking earlier about Alaska and glaciers and things, and it's you can't add any more miles. So you're not going to get any more company sponsors of miles. It is what it is. At some point, you run out of water stops to sponsor, put people's names on. But the iceberg is those fundraisers. And it's below the water where all that potential is. Right now, it's about 5% of the athletes, maybe a little bit higher. We've been working to grow it, that are willing to be fundraisers. Remember, I said at the beginning, we started at 0 because we had already been an event of 31 years before, now we're at year 45. But that potential for those fundraisers is where if that goes to 10% or 15%, that's when you go from 1 million, 1.2 million to 2 million to 3 million or whatever. It's limitless. And that's where the greatest potential is. And I think that's why we still have to tell those stories and keep that quality high.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And for you guys who've never run the Columbus Marathon or maybe never had the opportunity to experience it, there really is this nice kind of two teams working in the same direction that Darris lays out. You've got the Columbus Marathon team who's all focused, which is your team, and they're all focused on building the race, allowing the race to happen, doing the things like traffic control, setting up the water stops and the restroom facilities and all of that. You're supplying for the logistics of the race and the ability of the race to happen. And then you work with the Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation. They tackle all of the, I don't want to call it like theatrics, but the kind of like a lot of the fundraising side, like you say, the storytelling. Yep. They do a lot of the storytelling to really get the message out there about why this is so important. Because I know it's true of pediatric cancer, and I'm sure it's true of most pediatric disease. It is highly underfunded, highly under-researched, and very rare and unique conditions. Kids are not necessarily supposed to get sick in the way that we can later in life as our bodies break down. So when kids do get sick, it's usually some kind of genetic mutation or things that happen that are very unique and very rare and can be incredibly complex and difficult to understand. So pediatric illness is such a unique challenge in every single case. And the other thing about it is every single case is so individually unique too, because you've got to take into account the child's age and their physical, emotional, spiritual, mental development, along with everything else that goes into the disease and the treatment and how tough that can be. The cancer treatment especially, people are afraid to do research in kids because of the risk that goes with it, and it's understandable, but at the same time, without good research, we won't find these new breakthrough cures that exist for a lot of adult cancers these days. So I've always thought Nationwide has been just a really great forefront advocate for these kids battling childhood illness. And obviously they're one of the leaders in the world for research, and they're growing all the time too. Every time I come up here, it seems like there's a new research facility.
Yeah.
And I love to see it, because we need more of that for pediatric disease and illness. You know, the type of cancer I had in 2013, if I had had it just 30 years prior in 1980, I would have had a 50% chance of survival. Because of all the research that had been done in the meantime, in 2013, with the specific time that we caught it and unique set of parameters I actually had a 95% of survival, and then very nearly lost my life to the treatment, because the treatment they use is still very kind of old school technology in the world of cancer treatment, because a lot of these new therapies have not been able to be adequately tested in kids.
Yeah.
And they also treat kids at much higher relative doses than they do adults, because their bodies are younger, more resilient. Pediatric cancers are more aggressive, so they'll give us kids much higher doses of chemotherapy relative to their body weight and size, and it can beat you down pretty hard. And you know, it's that we have to do that, you know, to give these kids as much chance at living a long, happy, fulfilling life as possible. And there's so much that goes into it, but like you say, there's so much we can do on a personal level. And I think when you sign up for the race, what you'll notice is that what really sets this race apart is that, as Darris said, every single mile there's what's called a patient champion. These patient champions are people who either are currently being actively treated at the hospital or have recently been treated at the hospital. And we've been fortunate enough with Team Impossible and Impossible Performance, if you guys have gotten the opportunity to run with us, we've been able to get close to a lot of these patients along the way, and you know, share our stories with them. They share their stories with us, and it's an honor to meet them every time. But these patients get stationed at every mile, and then their families and friends and everybody comes out with them, and it's great because the hospital really treats them like royalty in a lot of ways. And for these kids, it is the most exciting thing that has ever happened to them. They're like little celebrities, and they love it. They have so much energy and excitement and, like you say, passion for it. And what I see as I'm running through the race, I see that it impacts nearly every runner that comes through and passes by. And that's where we as runners really have a big opportunity, not only just to help motivate and inspire these kids as they're motivating and inspiring us, but we can actually help them battle their disease through our fundraising efforts. And I think the foundation has continued to do a better and better job of making this as streamlined and accessible for the runners as possible. But when you go to register for the Columbus Marathon, and even if you've already registered, it's not too late to sign up for this. So if you're listening to this now and you are not currently signed up as what's called a children's champion, you can still do this. We will put the links in our bio, and you can still make this happen. Everybody on Team Impossible always signs up as a children's champion. But what that is basically you sign up as an advocate for these children. They give you a whole online platform to fundraise. They give you everything you need. All you have to do is type in a little bit of information, keep up with some of your emails, and share the link with some people. That's literally all you have to do. Now, you can take it as far as you want. Like we did back in 2023, we had a goal of raising $26.2 thousand and ended up raising over $32,000.
That's awesome.
Just because of the generosity of everybody we knew. You know, it was one of the most humbling and incredible experiences of my life to just see the beauty of humanity in that way. But you don't have to necessarily raise $32,000. You can take this platform they give you. You can copy the donation link onto Facebook or onto Instagram or wherever you like to do your social media, or you can email it out to an email list. You can text it out to all of your friends and just say, hey, I'm running for the Columbus Marathon this year. You as the runner, as the children's champion, all of that money stays central to Nationwide Children. So it's helping kids right here in Columbus and the surrounding areas and anybody who comes to this hospital. So it's not like it's going off to some distant facility and you don't know what's being done with it. More than that, you can actually direct where your funds go to. So that $32,000 we raised all went to pediatric research right here at Nationwide Children's Hospital, because that's the area we chose. And you guys could send it to heart health research or spinal muscular atrophy, or they have many different categories of where you can send your fundraising dollars. But it is actually a very easy, very streamlined process to be able to do. And like Darris said, the runners are really the iceberg that's under the water. We get a lot of incredible donations from local businesses helping sponsor the miles and everything else they can possibly sponsor. But like you said, you can only slap so many sponsorships on the race before you kind of saturate the environment. However, we have 15,000 plus runners that all could be fundraising. And, you know, if 15,000 people raise $100, that money exponentiates quite quickly. So this is an amazing opportunity that we have as individuals and as teams and as a community to come together and be able to help these kids, help the hospital, and help our entire surrounding community, because these kids are our future. And they're not just kids who are sick and who are battling illness. You guys heard me describe at the beginning of this episode, you heard me talk about two of my friends who completely altered my life when I was going through cancer therapy, both of whom were far better souls, far better humans than I could ever hope to achieve. And they both lost their life to the same exact cancer I had, far too young. They are people who already had changed so many lives, and to a point changed their entire community before they passed. And they would have gone on to change the world, and in many ways still are having effects on the world. These kids, when they battle this illness, battle these challenges, especially at such a young age, and if you've ever seen the fighting spirit of a child, you know this is true. The strength of mind, the strength of spirit, the strength of emotion, the strength of body, all those domains we talk about all the time, what you build as facing this challenge as a child is immense. It's impossible. It's beyond anything I've ever had the opportunity to witness. And these kids all have the potential to go on and do that. And through our help with helping to motivate and inspire them, advocate for them, and help raise research dollars for them so that life-saving, life-changing research can be done here at Nationwide Children's Hospital, you as an athlete, you as a community member of the Columbus and surrounding areas, you as just a human have the power to give that opportunity to these kids through something quite simple like signing up and helping to share a link. So we've done several episodes in the past about exactly how to walk through this process and different strategies for being able to share these links and fundraise. We're not going to dive into all that today, but I did want to take a moment to really press on just how important this piece is, this piece of Children's Champion. When you sign up to run the Columbus Marathon, you can sign up to be a Children's Champion. It doesn't cost you any extra money. You don't have to put a ton of time into it. I know we're all busy. We all have a lot of commitments in our lives, but it's something very simple, very easy. The hospital's made it incredibly streamlined, and they give a lot of Children's Champions some very unique opportunities for the race as well that really help benefit your race experience. So just check it out. We'll have the link in the bio. Click that link. If you're running the Columbus Marathon this year, which it's too late to sign up because I do believe it's sold out. Is that correct, Darris? Yeah, we were sold out for this year, but you can always look at next year. But if you were signed up for this year and are not a Children's Champion yet, please at least click that link and check it out, because as Darris said, if we could even get that 5% to 10% or 20 or 30, 40, 50, there are millions and millions of dollars we could look at bringing in purely to help these kids right here at home.
I've never been a person who could. I was terrible at fundraising. When I was a kid, I couldn't even collect for my paper route. My dad would have to drive me around and make sure I went up to the doors. But the thing is, if you're not a good fundraiser and you still want to help, that's why you go to your friends. Think how many times your friends have hit you up for Girl Scout cookies or this thing or that thing. But what's great is the limits are pretty low. I think it's like $250 or something. You get breakfast. You get you get to go into this starting tent, which is heated. We even have the VIP trailers, which have running water in them for the restrooms. I mean, put it on your friends and family. They've hit you up enough. So I always think of that.
Yeah, let me tell you guys. So as you raise more money as a Children's Champion, and as we've talked about, it's not about us and our experience, but you do get some benefits the more money you raise that go along with your race experience, which I think is a great thing to offer to the runners as well. But once you hit, I think Darris said, I think it is $250. You get access of fundraising, which if you text 10 people and say, hey, can you donate $25 to this cause that I'm really passionate about? Most people are going to say yes. If you text that to 20 people, half of them are going to say yes, and you'll have your $250. It's literally that easy. And you get access to this pre-race tent that is heated. There's fresh out of the oven.
That's a very important fact right there, that it is heated.
It is so nice. Like, I don't know that I could run the marathon without that tent there. I feel like I've been way too pampered over the years, but it's heated. There's fresh out of the oven Panera bread and coffee and water, and there's all sorts of other children's champions that you get to interact with. Some of the greatest relationships I've made, and they're people that I see every year only at the Columbus Marathon, but we see each other every year in that tent, and we catch up and we chat, and some of the just most joyous people and the brightest spirits I've had the opportunity to meet over the years. We always catch up in that tent. It's a great community. And then, as Darris said, they haul in some trailers with private restrooms that have running water. They're also like heated and temperature controlled as well. And it's a very nice start to the race. At the finish line, that tent is still open. And then they roll out the Panera sandwiches and soups and all that stuff. And it's again just a great little community stop. And it's a great opportunity to connect with other people and learn about other journeys and why people are doing what they're doing as a children's champion. And you go beyond that $250 level, and there's significant other perks that come along the way, apparel and gift cards and all kinds of other things. So there are a lot of benefits to you as the runner as well that can even help enhance your race experience. So if you're going for a PR sub 3 hour time and you're like, I don't have time to worry about the fundraising side, I need to be purely focused on training for this race to make this goal happen, you might give it a second thought, because some of the perks that you get along the way, like having that tent space, the private check-in, things like that make your race day experience a little smoother, may actually help you go a little further in that PR goal you chase.
It's funny too. It's misnamed as it's not a tent. It is a building. That thing is a structure.
Yeah.
We call it the tent. But it's a big. Actually, we expanded it this year too. It's even larger. Yeah, it's got quite the size to it. It's I can't remember now the square footage, but we added, I think, another 15 or 20% to it.
Oh, fantastic!
That's unbelievable.
It just keeps growing.
Yeah, Darris is right. We say tent because it technically is like a big carnival style tent, but it is a whole structure facility. Like you could about have a tornado or earthquake come through, and I don't think that thing's budging
knock on wood.
Yeah. So this is why I think this is such a big part of what makes this race unique, because there's no other race where you get to directly experience and interact with the people that you're helping, the people you're fundraising for. There's a lot of races where you get to fundraise, but it's for this cause, and it may be a great cause that you love to support, but I always think there feels like there's some kind of detachment from the runner and the cause. But what the Columbus Marathon and Nationwide Children's Hospital do so well is they marry the two perfectly, where you as the runner, you get to fundraise all these dollars, and then you show up on race day. And even before race day, they have things like the Breakfast of Champions, these events where you get to meet the kids that are going to be posted every mile. You get to hear them speak, some of them. You get to learn about their stories and what they've battled through and how they got to where they are today. You get to sit with them and their families and just have conversations with them. And it's so deeply impactful and meaningful for the runners because, for example, in 2023, the big year we were fundraising, I was pushing to run the full marathon. We got to meet a kid named Sam. Sam was one of the patient champions. And Sam had the exact same type of cancer I did, in the exact same spot pretty much too. But because of the research that had been done in the 10 years difference between me and Sam, just 10 years, which in the grand scheme of medicine is not really all that long.
Yeah.
But because of the changes that had been made, Sam didn't have to lose his leg like I did.
Yeah.
And still was able to walk away with the same prognosis and outcomes, and still could run around and jump and be a kid just like any other kid can be. And that was such a rewarding experience for me to see, okay, I'm raising all of this money, and here's this kid that I understand and relate to on such a profound level because of the shared experience we've had. and I see what the dollars have done the last 10 years to help change outcomes for kids going through what I went through.
Yeah.
And what can this money I raise now do for kids 10 years from now?
And that's where you talk about the partnership with the hospital. We don't have anything to do with the selection of those patients. And that's what I love, that this is not just a couple people in some office. They involve the whole hospital. Departments nominate kids to become champions. And that's why you see such diversity of different ailments that kids are dealing with. And each year it changes. But they have a whole nomination process. They have a whole criteria. And there's some of that's also critical because of logistical things. Yeah. We can't have some kids that are ambulatory out on the course because for their safety and health and wellness, we want to make sure. But at the same time, myself, our board, my team, we're not the people who can select these kids. The hospital knows what they know. Mm-hmm. And, we know how to reach the runner audience and market to them. But so I love the fact that the hospital is that engaged in that whole process to make it really, just they do the right things to make it work.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've always loved about the hospital in general is that, much like we talked about with the race and how you try to focus on what is going to create the best experience for the runner, the hospital's always asking what is going to create the best experience for our patients. Yeah. And they go so far above and beyond. And you see it the moment you walk in the doors. Yeah. Like, it's not just a big fancy hospital atrium. There's trees and wooden animals and all sorts of people that are just going around. They've got animal sounds coming out of the floor. They've got plastic birds suspended from the ceiling. They've got projection images of animals running across the wall. And for a child to walk in there, I'll never forget the first time I was on crutches at the time. Because I'd just been diagnosed and I could not walk on that leg at all. And I walked in there and it just I stopped dead in my tracks because it's just so unlike anything you would expect walking into a hospital. Yeah. And I remember the next step I took, I had more pep in that step. I had more energy, even though I was about to go through what was at the time the most terrifying and difficult thing in my life. I felt a renewed sense of energy just from seeing how much intricate detail they put into everything they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really what makes the difference at the end of the day. And I love how you guys have created this really unique symbiotic relationship where you can work kind of in your own lanes, focusing on your own unique abilities and strengths, and then they come together to create what is such a beautiful experience for everybody.
It's interesting. It's changed the whole. There's some people who just run. They don't. It's great. The hospital supported. They don't fundraise, and that's fine. People do their own thing. But more and more and more people will tell me or tell others that they're doing this race. They're not a runner. They took it up because they saw they wanted to help the hospital. And they saw this is a neat way. We're very fortunate. I always joke with people that it wouldn't work if it was an adult hospital, because we as adults don't want to think about the hospital. We know it's there when we need it, but we don't want to support it. Plus we also know what it costs us as patients. Kids don't necessarily think about the bill. As adults we do. But when you partner with a hospital, with a children's hospital, it's really hard to argue that you're really helping to lead to positive outcomes is the goal. And really, you get to see the tangible goal is to make children adults. Mm-hmm. There's a once we're an adult, we stay there. But I love the fact that's what their mission is really to create healthy adults. Yeah. And it seems to resonate with people. But the thing is, I joke with people is there's in this town there's 3 things that if you link up to, you're probably going to be okay. Children's Hospital, COSI, and the zoo. Those are charitable organizations, nonprofit, educational, or support for kids. But at the same time, you're going to be okay. And supporting an adult hospital, we have to go to them, but that's a hard sell. And that's why I love this partnership, because it's an easier story to tell. Mm-hmm. still still hard. You're still getting people to part with their money to support it from our standpoint, to fundraise. But it's one of those things I think that we're fortunate that that's the partnership that we created. Yeah. And I also feel it really, some people don't agree with me, and that's fine, but I'm not sure this event would have survived without our partnership. Yeah. I don't mean financially. This event's always been well run. The board's always had a very conservative approach. Look at the worst case scenario for revenue and worst case scenario for expenses, and that always allows us to create funds that to keep the event going. That's why in 2020, when we canceled, we'd already gone through June before we canceled. We had a lot of thousands, might have been 10,000 people signed up. We gave their money back, which is unheard of. A lot of people didn't give their money back at things, but because the board was so sound in their budgeting, we were able to do that. But at the same time, the reason this event may not have survived is because this is a booming town. 26 miles. Go out and try to lay out 26 miles of roads that are under construction. Oh, we got a new development coming in, a $10 million high rise. That's happening all the time. And people could have said, thanks, you guys do a great job. This is a fun event, but it's getting too complicated here. But partner with the Children's Hospital, all of a sudden, people have made it happen. We've worked through those challenges. Our complaints, we used to get a lot of complaints. 50% of the people loved us, 50% hated us. We were like politicians. But now we don't get those complaints because it's, I joke, it's kind of hard to argue with a place that helps sick kids. Yeah. But that partnership has legitimized us. It's also made us credible in the general community. People that don't run or walk or care about these types of things, they still care about Children's Hospital. So it made us an important community event, like a Red, White, and Boom, or like the Arts Festival, or like, at major athletics that we have here. It became something as opposed to just a bunch of crazy runners and walkers. And, thankfully it's a great cause, but it also gives us some leverage that we didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you bring up a thing there that I think is such another unique part of the Columbus Marathon. That's the accessibility of it for people who are even non-runners and the opportunity that exists there. I've said for a long time that I think the half, and I'd be interested to see if you think the same thing. I think the half marathon specifically is kind of the perfect race to run, because it's a distance and a race that if you've never run before, never really been athletically involved, and some people I know who are really high-level athletes, even still, so many people believe, oh, there's no way I could ever run that. There's no way I could ever run 13.1 miles. But at the same time, it's a distance that pretty much anybody with a little bit of training and a little bit of know-how and a little bit of perseverance can go out and do, even if they end up walking a good bit of it. Pretty much anybody in moderately reasonable health can go out and complete it.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's such a great thing, because those two things are true at the same time. We can take pretty much anybody, and Austin will tell you, and so many other people will tell you, I am the king at guilting people into running marathons.
Yeah.
But I do that because we've got a saying that I always focus on. I think one of the things that really is a unique strength of ours is we're able to see people not as they are, but what we know they can be. And so I can see somebody within just a few moments of interacting with them. I can see like where that passion's coming from, where their drive's coming from, what are they wanting, what are they striving for in life. And even if they're in a tough spot right now, like I can just very quickly connect and tell, like, this person's wanting more out of life. They're wanting to see more in themselves. And the second I sense that, I latch onto it. Especially if I ever hear anybody say, I went out and ran a half mile last night, immediately I'm like, all right, marathon time, Yeah. And of course it blows them away. They're like, I just did a half mile, I'm not ready for a marathon. I'm like, trust me, you can do it.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it allows people to have access to that same thing I experienced in 2017. I crossed that finish line. I'm in tears. I just completed something that I never thought would be possible, never thought would be accessible. From back in 2013 when I was coming off ECMO, I have doctors telling me I may never walk again. Fast forward 4 years later, I'm crossing the finish line of a half marathon that I did on one leg. And I'm just like, what? Immediately, all I could think is, what else is possible? What else is out there for me?
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's totally attainable, and but yet a huge accomplishment. Like, there's no way that everybody out there that we're talking about could deadlift 500 pounds or squat 500 pounds.
Yeah.
There's some bodies aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, but yet this is almost like your personal Everest. You can accomplish that. I could never climb Mount Everest. First of all, I hate to be cold, but at the same time, there's just some things aren't going to happen. But yet, something like this, if you put your mind to it, now, it's almost like conquering algebra. I don't know if I could go back and study algebra. I didn't understand it the first time. I don't know if I could learn it. But something like this, if you can walk, you've got 4 hours to walk. We give you 18-minute miles. People can achieve that. Yeah. And not that sports or athletics are the end-all, be-all. Sometimes they're not important to people. But whatever you're passionate about or you want to become passionate about, you can accomplish those things if you just set out and focus on it to change. You just want to do something different. You want to change your life. You're not happy with things, or you just want to see if you can do something. There's many things in the world you can do to see if you can do it, but a half marathon is something that you can do it with a whole lot of other people. And in our case, you can also, if you choose to, either fundraise or at least celebrate the fundraising. You may not be good fundraisers. You may not have the money to go out and support this hospital. But if you're out there on that course and you're supporting those kids, you're basically just as valuable as the person that raised $10,000, because you are showing the community, showing those kids, showing the other athletes that this is an important thing to you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You actually brought up a third tier of that situation I was talking about with the half marathon that I'd not considered. Like I talked about, it's something that most people don't believe they could do. At the same time, it is something that most people could actually do. And you brought up a third tier that is, it does require some work though. So it's not something like, I feel like a lot of people could go, even if they don't think they could run a 5K, pretty much anybody could go out even with no training and complete a 5K if they had to. I don't know that most people would complete a half marathon just naturally with no training. So there's a third tier here where you do actually have to put in a little bit of energy and training and preparation and some miles and work for it a little bit. And I think that enhances the whole experience, because when you go through a process where you work for something, you see that you can grow and build in your endurance capacity and in your strength and in your mental tolerance and ability. When you build in all these areas and then you go out and complete something through that process of having worked through it that you never thought would happen, it allows you to have this confidence in knowing that I've worked for things before that I didn't think I could achieve. And as I went down the process, I built and got stronger. And then I came out and achieved it. And while it wasn't easy, most people, when they cross that finish line, you look back after you're done and you're like, you remember just so much of the good of it. And you're like, man, that was not even as hard as I thought it would be.
Yeah, you're right.
What else can I do? And you can take that same framework and apply it to anything in life, anything you're passionate about, anything you want to pursue.
Well, and even, again, running and I'm a huge advocate of long distance walking or walking in general. Those things, even if you don't want to ever do a race, don't ever want to go to a start line, that doesn't interest you at all. Does your health and wellness interest you? Mm-hmm. Does being there for your kids or for your family interest you? Then you don't learn to run or walk. You just go do it. Mm-hmm. And it may take you your first 100 yards, or you just go around the block or whatever. But I've never, and I will promise there's no one who can tell me differently. Those things they say, prove me wrong. Well, I know that's sometimes used for different things, but in my case, I'll say, I would love someone to prove me wrong, that you will never come home from a run or walk saying, I wish I hadn't done that. Mm-hmm. I mean, now granted, if something bad happened during that thing, clearly, I had a friend recently who we're honoring this year, actually, who was attacked by some dogs. That's not a good thing, okay? That could have been a better day for him. But at the same time, I've never come home, no matter what kind of day I had, from a run or walk saying, boy, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Never. So go out, and if you never want to do a race, that's great. But the health and wellness aspect, taking care of yourself, and it doesn't have to be running or walking. It could be working out with weights, or it could be rowing or swimming. But these things, if you just start doing them, it's going to make you healthier, which is a good thing. No one wants to be unhealthy, making themselves unhealthy. That's not a goal. Yeah. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's, I'm really trying to just get out of shape.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And that's something else I'll tell people too, because, you mention a marathon to somebody, especially if it's somebody who's kind of newer to running, and immediately all these, I would call them limitations, but all these things come up of, well, I've got this and I've got this and I can't do it because of this. One of the things that always comes up is the cost of it, because marathons just are not, they're not a cheap event necessarily. I think the Columbus Marathon is actually incredibly affordable for the experience that it is. And the key is sign up January 1st, and then you get it for, it's got to be close to,
it's half.
I was going to say it's like 50%
At
cheaper,
least,
I think. Because I sign up the first week of January every single year. And I sign up for the full marathon every single year just in case I get to a spot where I can run it that year. And it's just not that. I think I spend like $100 after all the fees and everything's included, and the experience you get out of it. I talk about, people talk about like return on investment and things like that from a business standpoint. I always look at like what you were talking about earlier. I talk about ROD, return on donation. And while the registration fees go a lot to making the run happen, I'm dedicating a lot of my time, energy, resource, fundraising, and stuff like that. Those are all things I'm donating to help kids, battling these pediatric illnesses. And for me, that's the thing that I found is like the highest return I get on this donation, because it's helping children who battle similar things to what I battled. It's helping this local community. I know where all the dollars are going. I know it's an organization I definitely trust and feel very confident in, and it's just something I'll never regret giving to it, or giving time to it, or supporting it in any capacity, just like you talked about with the run. But what I tell people is, even people who sign up very late where the prices are almost double, I say just sign up for it, go do it, and if you cross that finish line and decide you had a bad time and you wish you hadn't done it, I will pay you back your entire registration fee. I tell people that all the time.
That's awesome.
And I've never once, because I get some people who are like, okay, we'll see how I feel about this. And I've never once had to pay somebody back.
Great.
And I would absolutely do it, because I feel that confident that anybody who crosses that finish line, it will be one of the most memorable experiences of their life.
And they're signing up next year.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. Earlier we were talking about the formation, the evolution, and you actually opened with this, and I feel I need to explain. It actually touches on two things. So, mile 10 of the course is. I talked earlier about how the hospital's goal is to turn kids into adults. We have what's called the Alumni Mile at mile 10. And when this started in 2012, maybe the oldest kid that year, maybe it was 16, I don't know. We also had babies. But now, over time, those kids are all pretty much are mostly adults. Like our very first champion, she was at the time, I want to say 12, 11. She's now a kindergarten teacher.
Oh, wow.
23 years old. Yeah. And we had kids that were 15, maybe. When you look at 14 or 14 years now, that kid could have kids.
Yeah.
And I love that. But we asked them to come back. And so we've had 24 times 14, whatever that math is, almost 300 champions. And many of them come back to mile 10. And it's called the Alumni Mile. It's really cool. And they come back with their families, and that's it's right there in German Village at Schiller Park. And it's just...
That's a pretty part of the marathon.
It's a beautiful part.
I love that spot.
But having them there is great. Yeah. And then it leads into what you called, it was called the Angel Mile. This year we actually changed the name to the Remembrance Mile. And that's really because while the focus is on the kids, the angels, it's also on remembering the good stories, remember, the families remembering and paying homage to those families that are there. And what happened was when we did the race, I don't think that mile existed in our first year, 2012. Existed. It was a marathon. It was mile 11, but I don't think we had an honor mile there. And that was, the families came to us. They might have come to me, emailed me, or emailed the hospital, but they wanted to be part of this event. And it really would have been, I'll flat out say, it would have been really tacky if I would have come up with the idea, hey, let's honor these kids that have passed away. That's just, that's I think that would have been exploiting the opportunity, exploiting the situation. They wanted it. They're the ones who experienced it, the loss. They wanted to honor their children. And we're like, absolutely, let's do this. This is such a wonderful, noble cause. But I love how organic and pure it was, that it came from those families. And it's not, now, I joke about this. A lot of people are crying because they're almost done with the race. And they're coming up High Street. There's a little bit of a hill, so they're in tears because, I'm almost done. But they're really crying because it's so emotional. But it's not intended to be negative. Yeah. And I get it. I cry every year when I think about it. And thinking about those kids that are gone, sure, that's super heavy. But those families are there cheering, and they want to, remember, we're all part of this together. Thanks to the hospital for what they did do while they could try to while the child was with them. And I love that. The families want it to be celebrated. So while it's a morose time, you can put that kind of at ease in your heart. The families are there. They want to celebrate. They're happy. So join in that joy, You also brought up how many people are there for the kids or are acknowledging those kids. So I love this story from 2023. I'm on the radio. I have a ham or a earpiece and all that stuff, and I'm getting reports from the lead vehicle. And the guy in the lead is on course record pace. And our course record has been the same course record since 1980.
Since the very
2
first
hours
year?
and 11 minutes. It's never been broken.
Holy, that's like elite level time.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was
approaching
set that
world
first
record
year,
status.
and it never, back then it would have been only a couple minutes off the world record at the time.
Wow.
And it never has been broken. Now they've gotten close.
Yeah.
So this kid is on course record time. He's up in the early 20s, mile 20, 21. He's up there over in Grandview Heights. And then I'm getting reports, and he's starting to slow down. Clearly, I'm not gonna criticize someone for running that kind of pace, even if he's close. But then I'm getting reports, he's starting to fall off a little bit, but he's losing some time because he's going and slapping the kids' foam hands.
Oh my God.
And he's like going, seeking out the kids in the later miles to give them high fives. Yeah. And that's like, I'm crying hearing this story, but I'm also like, wow, the impact is literally from first person to last person. This thing is touching everybody. And so I encourage, for those who are listening or those who are part of the audience, or you see these sponge hands out on the course, every kid has these things. And they want you to give them a high five, and that's what it's all about. And you'll see people taking pictures with the kids, giving them high fives. It slows down your race, I promise you. But it's also, for so many people, it's worth it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that story with us. That's unbelievable. And it demonstrates that even somebody of that elite ability who could have set a course record, he still recognizes the power of his own potential. We say all the time, your potential is your responsibility. Anything that's motivating or inspirational or life-changing or even world-changing that you have the potential for and that you're passionate about and that you find purpose in, that's your responsibility to be able to bring that to life and bring that to others. And that's exactly what that runner did in that scenario. He could have gone on and set a course record, and it would have inspired some runners and been really cool to talk about. But what he did for those kids, showing them that, hey, I am at this highest level in this sport, and I want to show you how much you mean to me.
Yep.
that's something those kids are never going to forget, and it is going to change the trajectory of their lives.
Yeah.
And that same thing, that same experience is accessible to every single one of the 15,000 plus runners and all the spectators and everybody else that's going to be there on race day, the volunteers, and we could go down such an incredible list. But I'm so glad you shared that story, because that is just a perfect example of what this race offers, that goes so far beyond just the miles and the steps itself. Yeah. So for people who are like looking to get into it, maybe they're thinking like, man, I've always wanted to run a half marathon, or I've run half marathons. I'm not sure if I want to take it to the next step and attempt that full. Or for people who are like first time marathoners, which actually Austin is going to be running the Columbus Marathon for the first time this year as well.
It's my first race. So the past 2 years that we've been involved with the race, and for me personally, unfortunately, I have relapsed about this time of the year for both 2023 and 2024.
With cancer diagnosis.
With a cancer diagnosis with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so, but this will be and so I've been on the sidelines. I've enjoyed the tent as a helper, and it's just been it's been absolutely fantastic. But this year, it'll be my first time actually on the course, and I'm not only thrilled and excited, but I am utterly elated to. It'll be my third half marathon, so I'm not necessarily like the running portion of it. I'm not focused on really at all. I'm there to survive that portion, but to experience, because for 2023 I was on a team kind of chasing after Matt to get photos and doing a bunch of media, and so that's been my responsibility up until this point, and so now it's going to be my responsibility, and for me, a bit selfish, it's my time to enjoy those moments with the patient champions, and I am so excited to be able to share those moments with those kids that we've been able to impact in one manner in terms of myself and my sort of performance. But this time now I'm going to be on the track itself, running around, so it's going to be a good time.
Well, first of all, don't say selfish. Because you're doing some things that might seem to be focused on you, but it's also making you, whether it's your health and your wellness and your mental wellness, but you're also, as I said earlier, and you brought up about that guy who was in the lead. You're showing those kids what's possible.
Yeah.
So it's not, everything we do can be considered selfish. When you take a drink of water, I'm drinking and I'm not giving you any because it's my water, but it's not selfish. It's self-sustaining.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that is such a great, I'm so glad you told me this. The hope, as I said earlier, this was my very first marathon. Maybe I didn't say that, but it was my very first marathon back in 1991, folks, when I was 4 years old.
Youngest person ever run a marathon.
Youngest person ever, yeah. So, but it was my first. And I, myself, and try to instill this in my team, and the board thinks this way too, we want to treat it as if it's first time, make that experience so fantastic. Because I know what it was like when I did that, and it was tough, and I struggled and suffered and walked and was mad at myself. But when I crossed that finish line, I was like, I did this. And so all the things that we've done, those details, are really focused on you as that first time to be that best experience it can be. Now, we have people that do it year after year. We have a guy, I mentioned earlier, the guy with the dogs. He was attacked by 3 pit bulls 5 weeks before last year's Columbus Marathon. He was going to attempt his 100th marathon. Clearly couldn't do it. Ended up major surgeries, things like that. Well, he's coming back to do his 100th this year.
Oh, heck yeah.
So for him, or first time, we want it to be that highest quality to where the other thing I would just say is if you finish, you're going to set a personal best.
Yes.
Guaranteed. Because it's your first. And it's also, I just heard this line 2 days ago. What's a message for first timers? Just stay in your footsteps. Don't think just stay in the moment. Which you've already finished. Those miles behind you, you're not going to change them. So if you walked or it didn't go well, doesn't matter because they're behind you. And what's in front of you, you don't necessarily know how you're going to feel. When I run these things, there's easily 5 different times where I go through low spots, but I come back up. So I don't know when they're going to be or if I'm going to have them all the time, but I know I'm going to have some kind of spots. So, but I don't worry about the bad spots ahead of me. And the ones that are over, maybe I threw up. It's back there behind me. I don't have to worry about it anymore,
Yeah.
I feel better. But just stay in that moment. And in this case, it is pretty easy to take your mind off of it between the kids out there, the entertainment we have, the cheer zones, the water stops are a good mental place to take your mind off it because you're focused on getting some fluids or an energy gel or whatever. So by then you're done. I mean, all those breaks in your thought process, you don't have to stay thinking and struggling for 3, 4, 5, however many hours. There's a lot of things that take your mind out of it. So use those tools.
Absolutely. And having that time running outside of greeting the patient champions, I really enjoy and I look forward to having those moments kind of to myself on the course. I really those moments I've over the few relapses that I've had throughout this cancer journey, I've really come to love moments to myself, and I'm not afraid to be in my own head. And it's always it may not be the most fun of places at times and moments, and we all have those, but at the same time in training, especially in previous half marathons, I've really loved those moments of just silence, just hearing the little pitter patter and really taking in the beauty, because I've done a half marathon, and it was a Cedar City half marathon down in southern Utah through the Red Rocks. So that was phenomenal. Very hot and very high elevation. The starting line was at 8,500 feet. And then you end at 5,000. But it is my first race in Columbus, one of my favorite cities in the States, and I've been to almost all of them in the United States, and it's just incredible that for the first race in Columbus, for the first race for me in Ohio, and the first race that just has such the impact is this one here. Is the Nationwide Children's Hospital Columbus Marathon, and I am just super elated.
I'm super elated for you. That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, it really is a great experience for first timers. And one thing I kind of didn't know how to chat about it, but it was something I wanted to chat with you about. Just get your thoughts on it, your understanding, your personal experience with it, because I truly don't know in this case. There's always the fear I think people have of what they would call in their mind failure. There's always the fear that we have of that, and that's what causes us to create so many limitations for ourselves. It's what causes us to hold back from taking a chance on an opportunity, because what if I fail? What if I don't do it? And with all the excuses or reasons why people would say they don't want to pursue something like this, even if deep down they may have an urge or a desire for it, I think a big thing that gets us is that fear of quote unquote failure. And we've spent a lot of time on the podcast discussing about failure and success and how to define them for yourself and how to modify and adapt and utilize each to learn and grow and build and all that. But as a runner specifically, or as an athlete, tackling failure can be one of the greatest challenges we face, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even physically sometimes. And in 2023, it was one of the most unique experiences I've personally had with that, because I announced it actually the day of the Columbus Marathon 2022, and I didn't intend this. It just happened this way. I was like, oh, today's when the race is. The day of the Columbus Marathon, I think at that point it was October 14th, maybe 2022, I announced, hey, next year I'm going to run the full marathon at Columbus, because I'd done the half marathon a couple times. I needed to take a year off powerlifting due to some surgeries I'd had. So I said, and I was 10 years cancer free. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to run the full Columbus Marathon next year, and we're going to raise $26.2 thousand for childhood cancer research. And at the time, I was about to throw up on camera, because what I was saying, I was like so afraid of. I was like, I don't know how on earth I'm going to do this. And for me, the more terrifying part was the fundraising, because I was like, I think I can get the run in, but the fundraising, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. Well, then it turns out the fundraising was actually the part we blew out of the water and far exceeded our goal, thanks to the just incredible, kind and giving people that supported us in that endeavor. And then physically, that entire year was just challenge after challenge after challenge, from developing a rare muscle breakdown condition to breaking my only foot 6 months into training, having to take 3 months off, all of these things that came along the way. And I'll never forget, I had so many people, we're coming into August and September, I had so many people telling me, just do the half. Like, the bigger thing is raising the money and the advocacy for the kids, and nobody's going to be upset with you. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to, bring you down for just running the half. And I just didn't know what to do, because I didn't want to. I knew that a full marathon at that point was really, really stretching. I mean, I'm all about pursuing the impossible, seeing what you can make happen, but I knew that was really kind of out of the realm of question with what I was facing. And I kind of knew that internally. And so I wanted to be able to, have that finish line moment, not for me, but for everybody else who had supported me. I wanted them to have that picture of victory, of success, or whatever it is, just to be able to celebrate this thing that we all did together, because it was absolutely not about me. Austin is way too humble when he says he was a part of 2023 on the sidelines. He was one of the most key, integral, critical factors of, being able to navigate around all the traffic control with my wife's car. And
it was fun.
he put
I remember
he put
I
drivers
saw you guys
like
at mile 23 or 4. And I'm like, how'd that car get in here?
he put Ken Block and other drivers like that to shame with how he was driving around. But it was so many people had come together. We all did that race together. And I remember it was our final big long training run I was doing with the guy who ran it with me, JD, who actually, it was his first full marathon.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'm going to try to hold it together on this one. It was his first full marathon as well. A year prior, almost to the day, he had attempted suicide.
Oh, man.
And he was not successful in that attempt and was hospitalized for a time being, and I didn't even know about it when it happened or after it happened. It was a month or so later, he just texted me and was, hey, can I come run with you?
Wow.
And we ran through the whole winter in this park after we got off work, complete dark, just the two of us side by side running, putting in miles. And it wasn't until like 6 months into training that he told me, what had happened.
Yeah.
And it totally altered the course of how I had approached the rest of that year, and how that race meant so much, not just to me now, but also to him and everything, he was working through and building. And so we ran, the whole course. We did all our training together, planned to run the race together. And he told me on our final long training run, because I was telling him, I was like, man, I don't know whether to still go for the full, even though I know there's pretty much no chance at this point it's going to happen, or whether I just, cut back and do the half and try for the full another year. And he's like, we trained this whole year to run the full marathon. And he's like, the one thing I know for sure that you can do is you can show up and attempt what you said you were going to do. And you can give it your very best shot. And he's like, that way you'll find your highest potential, and you won't leave anything on the table. And when he said that to me, it like my eyes were open. I was like, you know what? Sealed and done. We're good to go. And so I showed up that year to run the full marathon, despite pretty much every possible reason I had not to. And he was absolutely right, because I made it past. I'll never forget that moment running past that break off where the 13.1 people go off to finish. And that was the hardest steps I've ever had to take in my life, like running past that, knowing that I was in immeasurable, immense pain and inflammation, and my body was shutting down, and I'm like, I am halfway done. And I keep going, and we make it through. I used a hand cycle for about a mile or so, but that wasn't working out well. So I was alternating between running and walking, just trying to do anything we can. We make it up to the Buckeye Stadium, that's around like mile 17, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And kind of like you talked about, you do so much zigzagging talking to the patients. I think my watch was actually reading like 18 miles at that point. But regardless, we get up there and it's mile 17, and I had created these steps for myself of like, I'm just going to do this next little portion. I'm just going to get up there and that'll be done. And then I told myself, I was like, I'm just going to run around the stadium. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to focus on the next, 7+ miles.
Yeah.
Just going to run around the stadium. So I run around the stadium and I come back, and I don't think it was even an official Columbus Marathon restroom facility, but there was this random porta potty there. And so I go in, I'm like having like kind of burning pains in my kidney area, and my urine is just totally dark brown. And I'm like, in that moment, like in there, I was like, okay. We had just found out my wife's pregnant. I'm going to be a new father. And I just said, you know what? This is my potential for today before this just becomes medically unsafe for me. And that's not a line I was willing to cross at that time. So I stepped out. My whole family was there in the parking lot at at Ohio State Stadium. And my oncologist drove up, and somehow everybody just happened to be at that perfect spot, the perfect moment in time. And Austin and Lauren, my wife, were there. JD was there, my friend who was running it with me. And I didn't even have to say anything. We all just knew, like, it was time. And I have these tears and this emotion like you talked about, not because I'm sad or regret any moment of that or wish I had continued on. I've ever since that moment, I've called it my most joyful failure. And that's how I see it, because, I still call it a failure because I didn't succeed in that initial goal of running 26.2 miles, but I don't even care about that. I found my highest level of potential given the challenges and the circumstances I was facing. And if I had turned off at mile 13, I would have left 5 miles on the table without even knowing it.
Wow.
And I learned so much from that moment. And the second I got in that car to drive away, I didn't have a single feeling of regret, because when I was sitting in the back of that car trunk and switching my legs out, and we knew I'd called it in, I looked up at JD, my friend, and I said, we started this together, and now you can go finish it for us. And that's exactly what he took off, and he did the next 8 miles at like a far quicker pace than we had done the entire rest of the race. Like, he had negative splits for the entire next 8 miles or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you, you did leave him at the easiest spot on the course.
It's true.
It's all downhill once you get to 18, 19.
Yeah.
So let's not take away what you did. You got him to the mountain.
Not give him too much credit. Yeah,
I'm kidding. It's a great accomplishment.
Hear that, JD?
But that is where the course starts to get faster. But no, man.
And it was so cool because it gave me something immediately. Like, now my whole goal is helping him finish. We were able to get him through, help him finish. I get out right at that last little dip and up to what would have been the finish line. The course was being torn down, but you guys, again, in true Columbus Marathon fashion, some of your workers had given our family and our supporters like just some random banner to hold up and stretch out. And so JD I got to run the last little quarter-mile stretch with him.
Gosh.
And that was the true indicator to me that I was done, because I got out and started trying to run again, and I was bad shape.
Wow.
But we got to run and finish that thing together, and it was just like, it will always be one of the favorite moments of my life.
Well, couple things. That wasn't a random restroom, I don't think, at the stadium.
Oh, really?
That was our Children's Champions restroom.
Oh, was it?
We put them out at the Children's Champion locations. So there was not that there's that much symbolism to a portable restroom.
But I mean,
but that was there for a reason.
Wow. Because I remember being so surprised that was even there. But it was like, it came just in the time it took to run around the stadium, which was maybe, a quarter mile to run around the whole thing or something?
I think it's like 0.4 of a mile, something like that,
Just in that time, I went from like, in pain, but still moving, to like total shutdown. I was like, I've got to go to the bathroom now.
So you know the phrase DNF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the real DNF did nothing fatal.
Yeah.
So it's not a quit. It's not quitting. First of all, I'm gonna create a campaign to rename the half marathon into its own event, because it's not half of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it is,
Yeah.
but it's its own finish line. It's its own accomplishment. So we need to come up with a better name.
Yeah. I agree. I tell people all the time, I'm like, do you want to go run a marathon? They're like, well, maybe I could do the half. I'm like, that's still a marathon.
So let's go. Yeah. So let's
like,
come up with a
still
name
marathon,
to get it the credit it deserves.
Yeah.
At the same time,
A demi-marathon.
you accomplished 17, 18 miles, whatever your watch is, and you go by your watch. Never go by anything else. Don't trust, you got it. But instead of thinking what you didn't do, because who sets these goals? Yeah. Who says that I failed at X, Y, Z when it's what I accomplished? That's the way you need to look at it. Yeah. And everybody needs to look at it that way. It's funny. I was just talking to someone the other day about our race and about a race, and this guy said, "Yeah, he's trying to run 3 hours," and then I said, "I run 3 hours every marathon I do." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." Then I just keep going. So you can look at it that way. You can look at it, you're getting your money's worth. Whatever you do, don't ever worry about the time as much as just look at the accomplishment. Yeah. So you got 18 miles in that you wouldn't have done, and certainly those 5 that you wouldn't have done if you would have turned.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to put pressure on ourselves. I guarantee that there's only about 10 people that are going to make any money at this thing, and they're long gone and done. So let's just do it for the fun of it and enjoy. Or the fun is relative. It's accomplishment. I hate these things when I'm doing them. Boy, and 5Ks are the worst. Yeah. And we have a 5K on Saturday. 5Ks are the hardest event. It's short, but it just feel like you're all out the whole time, But the fact is, it's that no matter how much I'm dreading what I'm doing, when I'm done, I love that feeling. So when you finish, you're going to have, at Columbus, you're going to have such a wonderful feeling, even if it doesn't go great the whole time. It's knowing what you got done, the accomplishment. So that's what I think those first timers, those 50th timers, people that don't know how to do these things, but they're looking for a challenge that's manageable, not like a Mount Everest. It's something you can actually do and train around your neighborhood and then go and do this event. Just the accomplishment of it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you share that perspective. And I think that, again, it's a hallmark of the Columbus Marathon specifically that you guys are so uniquely supportive of every runner's journey. Like, when I decided I was gonna, go for this thing, and then I quickly realized, especially after I broke my foot, I was like, it's going to take me longer than 6.5 hours, if I even have a shot at completing it. I reach out to, I was fortunate to meet you and Star actually at the Cincinnati half marathon, which I was supposed to run, but I broke my foot and they wouldn't let me use my knee walker on the course, which good on them. I probably shouldn't have had any business doing that, but regardless, I was fortunate to meet you guys there, and I reached out to you later. I was like, hey, I'm not going to finish this in the time frame. Like, what are our options? And you guys, never once did you limit me and just say, you can't attempt this. You've got to stay with the half. You never once, tried to push me away from what I was chasing. You never once tried to, even though I was just one kind of, I was one runner amongst 15,000. It would have added a lot of it could have potentially added a lot of complication and everything. You guys were nothing but supportive in what I needed. We found a way to make it work. The course started to be torn down ahead of where we were running. It was totally fine. We had great people like Austin and Lauren, my wife, helping us navigate throughout the course and running what would have been the course, and every step of the way you were there to support me and support us and support our mission. And you guys take that same approach with every runner. And I love that, and I see that with all these stories you tell of all of these runners of our race. I can see the passion and the love you have for each individual runner and their unique story that brought them to this start line of the Columbus Marathon.
Thank you. I feel blessed. I feel honored. I'm so thankful that you even wanted to let me tell the story.
Oh.
This is a great, and meeting you guys and seeing you out there and seeing what you were doing, but also just what you're doing for. This is the space that you're running from this side to this side. This year to this year is the hardest distance for people to go, and you and what you're doing with your program, and just the inspiration, just helping people to understand that things are impossible if you don't do the right things. Clearly, we're not going to just whatever it is if you don't prepare yourself, but it doesn't mean you can't try to attempt things and get better. And even if you don't accomplish something as this self-imposed goal, if you make yourself better in the course of trying to get there, then you've succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just thank you.
Yeah, no, I say the same. We would both absolutely say the same to you, and thank you for this specific opportunity, but so much broader than that, everything you're doing for the Columbus community, especially the patients and the kids and the families of Nationwide Children's Hospital, and all the runners that show up to Columbus Marathon every year. It's such a uniquely special event for anybody who's listening, who's not done this race before, or you've considered doing this race. I promise you will not regret it if you give it a try. And I'll hold this promise true to all you guys as well. If you cross that finish line and regret everything and wish you'd never run that race, I will pay back your registration fee, because I know it's not going to happen. So I wanted to close with one more thing. And it was just, we could talk all day about the unique, special moments along the way of this marathon. But one that happened for me that I never saw coming was, you talk about some races have mountains and vistas and beautiful lakes. I think the one thing about Columbus Marathon that is the most beautiful scene to witness is coming up on, is it mile 7 to 8, where you come up, is it East Broad Street, and then you cross in front of the hospital?
Yes. So the out and back is mile 2 and mile 7. Then you head towards the hospital. Okay. Mile 8, and then between 8 and 9 is the hospital.
Okay. So you come up East Broad Street and you turn right onto Livingston, and then you get to run directly in front of the entirety of Nationwide Children's Hospital. Yeah. But it's not just the physical location. Doctors, nurses, patients, an entire community forms in front of that hospital. And the names of all the children's champions are listed on signs in front of that hospital. And I can't think of a single scene that is more defining and representative of the true meaning behind this marathon than that scene right there. And every time I turn that corner, it takes my breath away. Every single time. But in 2023, I had a unique moment where when I was at the end of my cancer journey, I had an issue with chemo that sent me into septic shock and on a very advanced form of life support, and I was actually supposed to die in the hospital, to the point my parents had even been told I was to expect me to die that night. And the doctor who had to tell them that couldn't let it go. She went back and did some more research, found this case study of this totally random kind of old school ancient drug being used in my specific situation when everything else was failing. And she thought, you know what? Why don't we give this a try? Because there's literally nothing else on the table. And if we don't do anything, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Gave it a try. And it was the total turning point. 5 days later, blood pressure's normalized, coming off that life support. 2 weeks later, out of a coma. And it was the thing that gave me back my life.
Yeah.
She was the doctor that gave me back my life. And so I'm running in front of Children's Hospital, and she's standing there 10 years later in front of that hospital. And there's a photo of this. I'll show it to you when we're done here. There's so many photos from that year I go back and look at, but this is one of my favorites. there's a photo there of me seeing her seeing me, and we recognize each other. She's wearing one of our team shirts she'd gotten, and we just run up to each other and give like the absolute biggest hug. And there were 2 nurses there with her that actually had taken care of me at that same time 10 years previously, and it was just like we didn't have to speak any words at all, but we knew everything that moment meant to each other.
Wow.
For me it was about giving thanks for I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. Not only would I not be alive, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to now do everything I've been so gracious to be able to do, along this journey. And then from her perspective, it was like a firsthand representation of this is why I do what I do. This is why I put in the long hours. This is why I went through the residency. This is why I went through medical school, so I could give this to kids who need it most. And I bring up that story because that opportunity is the same opportunity that every runner of the Columbus Marathon has.
And the director, and I'll tell you right now, it's very easy to get off track with what I'm doing. We're in the final push.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of detail work and making sure this and that and the other thing. And I don't ever lose focus, but hearing this story puts me right back on why I really feel so compelled to keep trying my best. Because, after a while, you can only order so many Gatorade cups, or you can only, it becomes a thing. You know what you got to do it on September 1st. I got to make sure that XYZ and October 1st. But hearing that just puts it right back into those feelings of I am making a difference. Mm-hmm. Just like those runners, just like you, just like that moment. And that doctor and those nurses, they felt they were making a difference in a different way at that moment because they saw you and they had made it possible for you to be there. And you're there celebrating the hospital and the kids that are out there. It's just, so thank you for that story, man. I needed,
Well, I think it's great because it represents what we discussed about at the beginning of the episode, how you've got the Columbus Marathon crew and you've got the Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation, both working together toward a similar goal, doing 2 different mirror images of the work that needs to be done to make everything come together and happen. But it is a win-win scenario. Like, they support you and build you guys up, you support them, build them up, and the more you guys work together toward the same goal, the bigger everything grows and the more opportunity and positivity that's built from it. The same thing is true for each individual runner in their race, and especially if they sign up as a children's champion. You get to give fundraising for research. You get to motivate and inspire and show opportunity to these children. At the same time, they will drive and motivate and inspire you, and you will feel more gratitude, more excitement, and more determination for your race than you've ever felt before by doing this. So it is just a give situation, I guess we could call it. And there is nobody who sacrifices, there is nobody who loses in this pursuit. And that's, of all the things we talked about today, I think that is the greatest piece of what makes this the most meaningful marathon in America.
Thank you for shedding light on this. Thank you for your passion for it and for inspiring me. I mean, it makes me want to work harder and do even better, and that's what the goal is. So,
well, thank you for your time today. I know this is final crunch time for the Columbus Marathon, which, if you guys are listening to this right now, Sunday's coming quickly. This is coming out the Tuesday before October 19th. It's coming up right as we all are resting and kicking our feet back, kind of deloading and eating as much pasta as we possibly can, carb loading up.
Everybody has hard jobs in their careers. Everybody has their things. But the one part that's most difficult about what I do and the team does is, no matter what, at 7:30 on October 19th, that race is starting. We can't say, hey, can you come back in an hour? Rock stars, they delay shows.
Yeah.
They come out on stage late. Sporting events can do a delay. We got to go because we got a clock ticking. We got to give the city back its streets. We got to get everybody home safe. So it is that crunch time. So those who are paying attention are following this show. Yeah. These next 100 hours from the time you're hearing this are going to be rather challenging.
Yeah. And we hope you guys enjoy this episode. You got a lot out of it and gave you deeper insight into the true meaning behind this race you're running. I know that everybody listening has meaning behind their race already. You've got a goal you're chasing, or you got somebody you're wanting to represent, or you've got somebody you're wanting to inspire and fundraise for. Everybody's got a meaning behind the marathon. And our challenge to you would be to hold that meaning as tightly in your heart as you possibly can as you run this marathon. And then as you go through and you see these patients, you see the supporters, you see the volunteers, you see the nurses and doctors during mile 8 as you run in front of the hospital, that you let that meaning flow out and you let it serve as a reminder and a symbol and a driver for all those who are running with you, all those who get to witness your race and our race together, and you allow it to push you to some new level of impossible that you never thought you would have reached before. So thank you for being here today, Darris. And we want to give a special shout out because you guys will notice we are in a pretty unique location today. We are recording at Planks Cafe, one of the oldest restaurants and bars here in Columbus. And it's a beautiful place with wonderful, wonderful owners, local small town, small business here in Columbus with amazing food. Actually, the Portnoy, what is his name? The guy from Barstool Sports. Dave Portnoy actually did a review of Columbus pizza restaurants here recently, and Planks was on the list. And Planks is really unique because they use a very sweet sauce and a very sweet crust, and it is very unique to pretty much anybody who tastes it because you're not used to thinking of pizza as being super sweet. And he actually gave them very high reviews for their pizza, for what they put into it, how they make it, how they craft it, and just the incredible uniqueness of it. And we love that because it's a very unique space in a very unique city that's very close to the course and a Nationwide Children's Hospital itself in a very unique marathon. So huge shout out to Planks Cafe. If you guys are in the Columbus area or coming in for race day, definitely give them a try, and I promise you won't regret it. So anything else you have to add today for Darris?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be safe in your journeys, getting ready for the race, and I know I'll see you.
Yeah, absolutely. But guys, as we say, the only thing we ask on this podcast, we don't run a lot of advertisements. We don't ever break up the discussions because we believe that, these messages, these discussions are so important and hold so much meaning. The one thing we ask in return is if this episode meant something to you, if it had impact on you, which we absolutely know it did, please share it with as many people as you know who you think it would also impact. If you got people in your lives who are thinking about running their first half marathon or full marathon, or even just getting into a health and wellness routine in general, share this with them so it can help drive and inspire and motivate them and help them find meaning in their own journey. And especially if you are joining me and Austin, and Darris will be there too, I'm guessing, on October 19th to kick off this race. And what year is this now?
45 for the
45th.
marathon, 19 for the half.
Okay, so we'll have the 50th coming up here fairly soon, in the next 5 years. Yeah. So if you're coming out to join us as one of the 15,000 plus runners for the 45th Columbus Marathon on October 19th, please share this episode with as many of those runners as you know, so that we can all kind of learn some of the backstory behind the meaning of this race and why we're here to run these miles and the bigger, broader meaning that we can bring to it. Because when those fireworks go off and we all start hearing Bruce Springsteen singing at 7:30 in the morning, it creates a magical experience, kind of unlike anything else you're going to see anywhere else. And then throughout the entirety of that race, you're going to have so many of those magical experiences. And our challenge to you is to hold on to each one of those experiences. Hold them in your heart. Remember them. Use them to bring forth passion and purpose in your life, and let it drive you to new levels of potential that you never thought possible for yourself. Because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for running our race with us. And as always, be impossible.